So a lot of the videos on learning languages often go into stuff that's just completely not true. It's complete clickbait. And you end up wasting your time just learning things that aren't actually helping you. But in this video, I've basically made it my mission to give you 5 ways to learn a language faster. And the reason they're unexpected is because they actually work. A lot of the stuff that gets peddled, it's just really not effective, or it only works for people who've learned a bunch of languages. The 5 things in this video are things anyone can do. They're things that I personally do, and I'd highly recommend you do as many of them as possible. So with that said, let's get straight into it. The first thing that I would recommend you do is don't just learn words. And I'll explain what I mean by this, because this actually is something that gets talked about a lot. A lot of content creators are saying, don't just do flashcards to learn words, and I agree with them. But I want to kind of elaborate, because when you get told to not just learn words, I feel like you're kind of left in the dark and you don't really know what you should be doing to learn words. The reason that we say don't just learn words, as in don't just do flashcards and that kind of thing, is that you will forget the words. So although flashcards can be useful, and I'm going to explain how to actually use them in the proper way, the effective way, you can't just learn 10,000 words from them. If you need to learn, say, 10,000 words to reach your language goal, maybe 10,000 words is like the level where you'd be, okay, you can reasonably converse with people. You're not going to learn 10,000 words from just flashcards. The way you learn that many words is by teaching your brain that this new vocab is important. So when you're learning a new language, I've already talked about this before on the channel, you need to be teaching your brain that the new vocab is actually important to know. Otherwise, it has literally no reason at all to lock it into your long-term memory. So exposing yourself to words in multiple different ways. So flashcards could be one. You can also learn through content. You can produce as well as consume. Produce things like writing and speaking as well. All of these things together are going to make it a lot easier for you to remember words. So the takeaway from this point is, don't just do flashcards to learn words and get frustrated that you can't understand. Do a bunch of different things. At a bare minimum, every time you do flashcards, I'd like you to, as soon as you finish doing the flashcards, write as many words out as you can from memory. You can write the word in the translation, or you can literally just write all the words. So say you're doing animal flashcards, for example, you're learning words to do with animals, you just write out as many animals as you can in the foreign language afterwards. That is going to give you a boost compared to if you just didn't do that. But ideally, you're doing the flashcards, you're doing what I just said, you're also listening to content using those words, so you're actually recognizing those words kind of in the wild, no pun intended, because we're just talking about animals. And you could also write a short story, you could record yourself speaking, etc. Do a few different things to actually teach your brain this new content is important, or you're just not going to remember it because it's not useful at all. Your brain has never seen it before. It has no reason to see it as useful. So I'll have a video linked in the description that elaborates on this further. But I think this is a big problem of a lot of people. If you know you are forgetting words, start doing these things and you will find you actually remember the words way easier, which allows you to move on and you can learn quicker. So that's number one. The second thing that is super, super important is emotional control. Guys, I completely understand when you forget words, when you find it difficult to understand someone talking or whatever, it can be really annoying. You get your blood kind of boils. It's just frustrating. Just have some emotional control. I want you to remember the goal. Your goal isn't to understand everything 24/7 in the foreign language you're learning. Your goal is to learn the language. So even if, for example, I'll give you my story with reading. I've written that on the screen for a reason. I was reading Harry Potter. I still am. Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone, or Harry Potter и Философский камень in Russian. Sorry if my Russian pronunciation is bad. I'm still, I'm not fluent by any stretch. I'm still learning. But I was reading it in Russian, and I was finding it quite difficult. Like, there were a lot of words I didn't really know, and that was really frustrating for me. But rather than be a functioning human being and identify that, okay, my goal is to learn Russian, and so I'm reading Harry Potter in Russian to get closer towards that goal, the goal kind of shifted a little bit, where it was, okay, I'm going to try and read Harry Potter in Russian as fast as possible. And that was just dumb, because I would actually make more progress towards my goal if I went back and reread the chapter, for example. So I could have done a few pages, written down all the words, learnt them, and then reread the whole chapter and that kind of thing, just to help me actually learn more words. But no, I tried to steamroll through it and only learn the odd word here and there, which just wasn't good. It wasn't actually getting me towards my goal. So remember to live in line with your goal. If your goal is to learn a language and you're trying to speed through a book where you don't understand the words, you've actually shifted the goal. You've actually unintentionally shifted the goal to reading the book, whereas before the book was actually the instrument to your long-term goal. So just remember, with that example, it would be much better for you to actually learn the words as you go, and it might be a bit frustrating, but in the end, it's actually getting you closer towards your goal instead of doing what you feel like right now, and you can apply that to a bunch of different things. So if it gets you closer to your goal, that's a win. If it's what you feel like doing right now and it gets you closer to the goal, that's a double win. If it's what you feel like doing right now and it's not actually really helping you get that much better, you could be doing more stuff, it's not particularly good. So just remember, don't be frustrated. It's going to be annoying a lot of the time when you don't understand stuff, but just do things that get you closer towards your goal, regardless of whether they are frustrating right now. The third thing, and this is something I have been doing and I've made a few videos on already, but I'm going to chuck it in here as well, is to immerse in little ways. Immersion is basically swapping your native language with the language you're learning. So for me at the moment, that's swapping English, which is obviously my native language, or Australian, whatever you want to call it, with the new language I'm learning, which is Russian. So obviously, because I'm not fluent in Russian, I can't do my entire day in Russian. Also, that wouldn't make any sense because nobody else really, most of the people, 99% of the people I encounter don't speak it. So that would just be bad news for everyone. But what you can do is you can start immersing little things. That's why I've written immerse in little ways. So you can write yourself a daily goal. That's something I've been doing a lot. And you can put it into the foreign language. And I think most people don't even give themselves a daily goal. So that's kind of a double win. You start giving yourself a daily goal. You can write it in English. And then you just Google Translate it and write the Russian or whatever language translation underneath. And you're constantly exposing yourself because you're going to check it every single day. And this is a really great way to be consistent as well. Because even if say you're totally busy, you can't do any study or any listening or any reading at all that day, the fact that you've written down a daily goal or whatever you choose to do means you did something on that day, which I think is really good. And it's also a really great way, I'll tie this back to number one when we talked about importance and how you have to teach your brain things are important. This is a really good way to teach yourself that the words are important because you're actually using them like you use your native language in your daily life. So yeah, that's super useful. Another thing I would recommend as well is habit stack listening when you can. So even if you can't fully focus, obviously don't crash the car if you're driving, but if you're driving somewhere, you can have a podcast on in the background, you can listen to music in the foreign language, an audiobook. If you're running or exercising or anything, you can also do that. Same goes for chores, just that kind of thing. If you can take advantage of when you're not really doing anything else, you can habit stack listening, which can be really good. The fourth thing that I'm going to recommend you is to value stack. So value stacking is basically stacking new habits with enjoyable things you already do. So a lot of this is a little bit like habit stacking, but I'm going to kind of elaborate on it a little bit more. So it's very difficult to start doing a new habit that you don't particularly enjoy when you've never done it before. But if you can stack it with something that is actually enjoyable, or at a time when it's actually going to be fun to do, it's a lot easier to get it done. So for example, reading before bed or in the morning can be a great way to value stack because you don't really feel like doing anything at those times. So if reading is something that's easy for you, you can do that then. Same goes with the podcast while walking that we just talked about. Another great thing you can do to value stack is to throw skin in the game. So what I mean by that, and you don't have to do this at all because you can learn a language completely free, but if it's going to help you, something that I did was actually buy the Harry Potter series in Russian quite early on before I was actually capable of really reading that much of it, simply because I like the series. I know I'm going to read it eventually, and it gives me motivation because if I never learn Russian, I just have a bunch of books that they're kind of cool to look at. I'll show you one right now. They're kind of cool to look at, but like I have no idea what they might mean otherwise. So that would kind of be a bit frustrating. So little things like that. I believe you can also get, it might be LingoPie, or there are subscription services where they have actual shows with like bilingual subtitles and little games after each episode where they can help you learn the language. I personally haven't used them, but I kind of want to now just talking about it. So I might get that and make a video on it. But yeah, you can also buy a course if you want. There's YouTubers who make courses for their own language. I've got my own course linked in the description if you want to check that out. But yeah, just little things like that, throwing skin in the game, I know for me, keeps me way more motivated. Me now in the gym with supplements and gym gear and stuff that I bought I'm way more productive now than I was before, even though I've been doing it longer now, but just because I've bought stuff, I actually feel like I'm more productive now. And I know it's the same for a lot of people. So do what you want with this one. I just think it is kind of useful. And yeah, try and make language learning fun as well. We already addressed that, but yeah, if it's always painful and a grind, it's pretty difficult to stick with it. So yeah. The fifth thing I'm going to recommend is super, super important, maybe even the most important on this list, but it is to find your weak spot. Everybody has at least one major weakness. I know I do. And it could be a bunch of different things. The weakness is basically something that's stopping you from achieving your goal. So if you're here right now and you want to be here, you want to be able to speak a language fluently, the weakness is going to be something in the middle that's stopping you from getting there. So do you get demotivated easily? Are you lazy? Do you constantly switch languages? Think about your real desire and ask yourself, is what you're doing right now actually in line with it? So if you keep switching between languages, but you want to become fluent in one language, or you want to, say you want to become fluent in one language or pretty good in one language, you can go live in that country for a few months or something like that. If you keep constantly switching languages, you're not actually on track to getting to that level, simply because you're not sticking with one language long enough to make really, really good progress in it. So ask yourself what your real desire is, see if your goal is actually in line with it, and then if you do have a goal in line with it, make sure you are working towards your goal. If you get demotivated easily and you keep falling off, you need to watch some videos on that. I'll have one linked in the description if you want to check it out. If you're constantly lazy, if you're doing any of those things that are getting in the way, you need to identify what the problem is and make sure you crush it. If you're the kind of person who identifies a problem, crushes it, identifies a problem, crushes it, just constantly, the amount of progress you make is going to be absolutely ridiculous. So if you're having difficulty knowing what the actual problem is for you right now, I'd highly recommend you try journaling. Just literally like book or paper and a pen, and you can write about what your current problem is. It's so easy to fix problems that way, and you'd be surprised what actually comes out of your head. So that's the final thing I will recommend you. Find your weak spot and make sure you do these things right after this video, and you will find you make so much more progress. But guys, thank you for watching and have a good one.